Hello and welcome back to another devlog. This is number 35. So starting off the week on Monday, I spent some time coming up with a new design to better handle complex transitions between overlapping hallways. The basic transition from the higher ceiling room to a lower ceiling hallway was working pretty good, but I wanted a more fluid transition between sectors, like this sector here. Let's see. Sector. Between this sector and, say, this sector. And also, without relying on the actual portal to handle the transition. And also intersector transitions where I have, let's see, A, B. I have, if we can see the box collider here, where I have two different collider or confiner collider set up, one for this hall and this one. So I need a way to transition between these two confiner zones within the sector. So in order to do that, I came up with a I had to really sit down and design a system to kind of handle in a way that was sufficient. And I came up with this grid cell design, which has different kind of zones. So depending on wherever you're coming from, whether it's the top or the right or the bottom, it'll detect that you entered the zone, and then the next zone that you enter after that would be the one it transitions to. So this zone going over here, it transitions up. This zone going over here, it transitions down. And it even has these little wings, these little wing zones to actually handle the transition if you're if you're outside the collider. So if you're going in here and then you go here, then it'll transition. So it handles these edge cases, and this is kind of what I've done. And I've set up an algorithm to actually input the different insets and whatnot, and then click a button to actually generate this. And this seems to actually work pretty good for the most part. Depending on the case and the setup, I can actually eliminate most of the actual transition blockage. Previously, if it's too short, the character would still actually hang up on the actual the confiner, this confiner area, but not really. So all in all, testing produced adequate results. It handles complicated setups like a three-way, and I believe it could actually handle something like a four-way as well if I wanted to, but I don't have any four-way cases in this whole. But I think it's a good enough system to go with, and it eliminates the previous problems I was having with inter-hallway connectors, because I didn't actually have a sector to determine whether you're transitioning from one section to another. I didn't have a sector portal, so this is pretty much like its own sector portal for inter-hallway, and it works back and forth and transitions the virtual camera from one collider confiner zone to another. So is it absolute? Is it perfect? Is it the best design ever conceived? Probably not, but does it work and function with an adequate? Yes, it's something I'd go with. So the results are more than acceptable. So I can kind of demonstrate this. So before I demonstrate, that was Monday, and then Tuesday. Tuesday I pretty much solidified the design, and then I implemented each of the connecting hallways with this. So it's pretty much a different layout for each one. So all the hallways are now connected with this. Um, and then, so go ahead and demo this now. So at the end of Tuesday, I actually added door animations. I got into the animator and animated the opening and closing with a box collider that kind of detects if you're in it, like before. And I followed the model the previous the simple door of the sector door they had, and kind of bootstrapped off of that. So it works pretty great. And I added an actual new sound to kind of handle the opening and closing. So there's your basic high hallway or high room ceiling to a low room ceiling. And then for the new connection ones, this is kind of how it looks. It's kind of like there's very minimal like jarring or transition, and depending on the case, it'll know how to transition you correctly from one confiner area to the other. And you can't really notice, it's even if there's a little bit of transition, it's very smooth. There's an ease in, and so it transitions to the right place, and it respects the actual confiner zones wherever you are. And this is pretty much what I was looking for. It'll just transition you to the right area, depending on where, whatever case or situation you're coming through or coming at. It'll just work properly. We can test another one over here where you're at a intersection corner, and pretty much just, no problem at all. If you're deep here, just be like, just like that, nice ease in. So this is more than adequate. There's no unnecessary halting. It's just, it's pretty much seamless. There's no issue where anybody would kind of take complaint with it and be like, oh, this is hot crap. No, this is actually, it's more than acceptable. So the last kind of issue I had with this whole thing was there's a little bit of an issue with my, if you look at this overlay here. So when you cross over into a sector, it was pretty much running an algorithm to, you can actually see it going on here. It was running an algorithm to, okay, you're in this sector, show the ones that are required and hide the ones that are not. The only problem that with the transition is that, let's just say you're coming into this room here. This would actually, you see how when you go into another sector, it kind of holds off from removing these until after you're in the sector. The same thing here. It waits a second. So in VR, you could actually turn your head right, and as you cross the sector, it would not be loaded. You can actually see an unloaded area. That's not a consideration in 2D, but it is in VR. So there's some other cases too where you could actually see unloaded areas based on where you're looking. So in order to solve that problem, I had to instead of doing it all at once when you cross the sector, like unloading and loading everything at once, I load immediately what you need to see and then kind of hold off and then unload after the fact. So you're not just instantly seeing it disappear. It disappears after the fact. And also I implemented a kind of a listener if you're trying to be tricky, and you kind of you go in and then out. It'll know not to. It'll be able to handle that. Like if you trigger the sector but the transition hasn't happened yet, it won't confuse itself. It'll know, oh, you did a double back, so keep this one still active. So I'm happy with that. And at this point, I had really come to the end of everything I wanted to do for this prototype level. Like, this is really a foundation for most major issue you could want for doing like interior levels. Like, this is the blueprint. You know, this probably took me over a month to really nail down, but this is something that I could actually build a production quality level off of. There's probably another round of iteration on optimization that I can include. I have some new tools that I was messing around with, but for right now, this is what I was trying to go for several weeks now. So that brought me to Wednesday, and so I just added the door opening and closing, and that was it for the first half of the day on Wednesday. Then I moved on to other things. Okay, so on the other half of Wednesday, I did some project cleanup and removed a lot of kind of like the old packages, testing packages that I wasn't using, and clean up a lot of files that are not necessary, and kind of just did a quick project cleanup, removed some old stuff and added some new packages. At this point, I was kind of at like a crossroads of what I want to tackle next. So I was kind of fiddling around with a few packages, trying to get a good handle on what next big chunk of work am I going to focus on for this project. I was messing around with the shadows detection package. Pretty much, it allows you to have like a meter, employ like a meter, depending on like, are you in shadow, occluded by shadow or not. It's like, it might be interesting for like a stealth component. So I got that working, and that's great. You know, I could maybe use that if I wanted to. It seems to work fairly reasonably. I also explored the Radiant GI and Shiny SSR post-processing packages. The demos were pretty neat, but that's kind of like the Shiny would make reflective surfaces look a lot cooler. I'd probably use that later on down the line, but it kind of goes back to messing around with the rendering settings, and I'm not sure how it would affect performance. But it looks pretty good. I'm kind of happy with what I have now. That doesn't mean I'll go and iterate on another round to increase performance and increase graphical quality. But those packages, I ran the demos and see what they can do, and they look pretty cool. So yeah, more post-processing later. I've already done a good round of, lighting and quality. I'm kind of sick of it for now. I'll probably come back to it for another iteration to make it even better, but right now I'm pretty happy with it. So I moved on. I decided to install the new character model that I bought, and I was messing around with the new Rifle Girl animations package I purchased. So I was always using my standard what was that? Yeah, this model here. And this model's good for, testing. It's low poly, whatever. And, this is just like a placeholder model that I want to use for my main character. So always looking in the asset store, I found this one, and it's like, okay, this is kind of what I want my main character to be. It's like female, anamorphic, like an animal or whatever. And this one's a fox. I think this one's the coolest one. It's like fox is more like, stealthy creature, I guess. So, and it just looks way better than um, it looks way better than um, the low poly one here. This is good, just good for. This has been good so far, but I'm not going to use this because it has a low poly look, and I'm kind of going for more of a higher resolution, more realistic look. So this is more we're talking about. This is still like an acceptable like mesh count and everything, but it looks way better. So this is how the model came. It has the basic clothes and then a nude version. But the thing I don't like about this model, I like the face and the body structure. I think this will really work, but I really don't like the hair they included. That to me is not what I want. So, and also if you remove the hair, that's also not really what I want. So I kind of want to I want to take this as a base. I want to use this structure, and that'll be great. But I kind of want to customize it. I kind of want to do my own thing, apply some custom hair or whatever I want to do, or do some custom clothes and stuff. These clothes are okay, but it's not quite what I'm going for. I kind of want to do some sort of like jacket or something like that, but in a higher res. So on Wednesday I started replacing my original mesh with the Fox mesh, and lots of tinkering, but essentially now everything about my main character controller is pretty much broken. It just every single last thing, replacing the mesh. But at the end of the day, I was able to get basic movement functionality working again. So that's great. At least it's not completely broken, but everything else that I built previously is pretty much broken in the bag. So it still has a lot of vector animations applied to it, but I was able to apply this new rifle girl running running animation, which I think is pretty sweet. It's a change, and I think it's a little bit better. That's why I bought. So there's this Rifle Girl animation set. It has a lot of cool, I think, animations. It's more of like a anime style, but I think it actually works. It looks pretty good. So the movement is working, but everything is pretty much broken. Like you can see if you equip a weapon, the IK is all totally messed up, and so I pretty much have to fix everything that's broken. That's not really as much of a problem as like building the initial functionality. Things are broken, but fixing them is half, a tenth as difficult as building them from scratch. So I just have to repair everything that's broken. But now I have a better a production quality model. I think I just have to go about customizing it to my liking, and this will be like, once it's customized, it'll be used in the final game. So that was Wednesday, okay. So on Thursday, I imported the FBX into Blender, and I soon became completely overwhelmed and lost trying to remember the basic operations of working in Blender. I mean, so what has it been, like 9 months since I've been doing all this work in Unity, and my initial training in Blender, like I'm not a noob to Blender, but I came back into it. I'm just like, okay, how does this dang thing work again? So I had to kind of remind myself from the ground up, like how to move around the navigation view, what all these darn windows mean, what all these symbols mean, and it slowly started to come back to me, like, okay, yeah, I remember this, okay, yeah, okay. So pretty much spending all day working with the AI, like, you know, kind of refreshing my memory, like, okay, yeah, edit mode, object mode, this and that. Okay, that's cool. So I was thinking about, okay, this is the nude model with no clothes, except the shoes. They put the shoes on there. So I basically importing the FBX. It came with its own already rigged armature, and that's great. I had rigged for the hair and for the tail. I had to come in Blender and kind of set up a few custom controls. I couldn't get it exactly like Unity, but I got it to a place where it's Unity-like in the movement controls, so it's a lot more easier and seamless to get into this and work with it. So the more I work in Blender, the better my process becomes, and the quicker I become in actually navigating and using the application. So I was kind of thinking, okay, I got my base model here. I want to apply some custom things to it, like hair, custom clothes. Also, another thing that I was always wanting to do was custom animations, right? There's certain, like, how do you, instead of taking this model, rigging it up, and then doing your own custom animation from scratch, you know, what if I could have something like an animation that's similar and kind of, you know, kind of just modify it to my liking, right? They have resources like Mixamo and other things where you can actually download a animation, but the trick is how do you add new animations from Mixamo and import the animations and kind of, because the Mixamo animation, it comes like, it doesn't come with a model, it just pretty much comes with an armature, and it has all its animation data already plugged in. So how do you take this custom armature and how do you apply it to your own armature that's actually rigged to the model, right? So I pretty much, what I've done, I've taken the armature that's come with this model, I've scrapped it, and I've kind of, because I worked with something called, it's called, if you go to animation here, it's called Rigify, and it, let's go to, it actually, it's I think it's a better, a neater system that actually allows you to, let's see, pose position. Oop. It actually allows you to, let's grab this here. It actually allows you to move around the character in a better rig, a more customizable rig, you know, a more modern. Instead of just, so it automatically rigs up all your IK and all the neat features in one go. You just have to generate and have to set it up. So you're setting up a basic meta rig armature, and then you're generating this Rigify rig, and supposedly this helps you actually translate these custom Mixamo armatures from one to the other easier. So I had to do a lot of research and playing around. But basically, on Friday, my objective was to figure out how to translate this animation over to my rig and see the mesh moving around, right? That took some doing, but I was able to watch a lot of videos, do a lot of research, and eventually, and figure out how to rig up and generate a Rigify rig properly. And then with a tool, a free tool called Rococo Studio. Um, it allows you to take one source rig and target another, and then you pretty much have to map each one bone from one rig to the other and say, okay, this bone equals that bone. And it took a lot of testing and trial and error, but eventually I figured out that if you take what you're mapping to, you have to kind of. My real struggle is my character armature is in an A pose, and this came in as a T pose. What you have to do, you have to kind of roughly match the pose so it translates. So you have to take this Mixamo, and you kind of have to manually manually have to adjust it to match your one, and then you can say retarget animation in it, and it actually works pretty good. I was having some issues with my actual. Let's hide these. I was actually having some issues with my teeth and tongue. For some reason, the teeth, when I retarded the animation and moving the rig around, they weren't moving well with the. Let's see. Let's go back here. They weren't moving with the head. They were kind of off. See how the eyes move together? They were kind of moving not in time, so I kind of had to get a new bone in place that's tied to the head bone that actually can keep these teeth from moving, inside the head instead of outside the mouth and all that. And then there's something odd going on with the tongue where I had to go in and manually weight paint. But after that, I got the because the tongue was just, it wasn't being affected at all. It would actually just stay in place in space until I actually painted it. But now everything's moving fine. So so eventually I was able to get everything working, retarget the animation, and I was able to, let's see if yeah. So basically, let's see if I can actually go over here to, yeah, here we go. So I was actually able to get a Mixamo animation going, and it looks pretty good. Like, this is just a dancing animation. All the hands are in the right place. There's no weird stuff going on. The teeth and the tongue are still in the head, so a bunch of little issues, but I did another one just for fun, just like a more acrobatic one, like this, and I think it looks pretty good in general. And so that kind of gives me something to work with, where I can take an animation and I can kind of go through the keyframes and adapt it to what I want it to be, just off a base animation. So for like, if I want a custom dodge, or I want to fine tune the actual running animation or whatever I want to do, I can work in Blender and modify the animations as such. So getting that working on Friday, that was pretty cool. Took some doing, but then for the end of the day, I was actually working on something else. I was getting to... I was like, okay, we got that done. That's great. So I actually started working on... There's a couple things. I want to do the hair. I want to do clothes. I want to do armature for the hands so I can grip a weapon, and also armature for the tail. Also, I want like an armature for hair to have dynamically moving hair when you're moving around. But I wanted to get rid of this hair that it came with. So watching another tutorial, I got some concept art, and it's like, okay, let's go for something like this, right? So if I get rid of these, so I was actually drawing some hair, right? And so basically it's kind of coming along. It's using what I've done before with a path and a circle. It's kind of technical the way this works, but basically it's like it draws a little it starts off with this little thing, and then you can like bend it to make it look like hair. It just has like ridges, and it follows this it kind of follows this circle deal, this custom circle. And yeah, so working on the hair. I'll be doing more work here. I'll probably have to color it and shade it with the material, but that's what I'll be doing next week to get the custom hair going. And that's pretty much it for the week. Thanks, and we will talk to you later.